You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Home Field Apparel. And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of the Assembly Call, as tonight, your Indiana Hoosiers defeat the Purdue Boilermakers in Simon Skjodt Assembly Hall 68-65 to end the 9-game losing streak. And they did it in a game where Trayce Jackson-Davis barely played. Now, he made huge plays down the stretch. But if you had said, Trayce obviously getting injured in the Nebraska game, if you had said he was only going to play as much as he played tonight, I don't think anybody would have expected Indiana to do what they did. The Hoosiers start out slowly. The bench comes in a huge way in the first half to build a lead. They give the lead up in the second half. And then there toward the end, it really felt like Indiana was just almost trying to just dribble out the clock, just hurry time. And possession after possession, Indiana couldn't get a good shot. But when they needed it late, they got it. And we are going to talk about it on this edition of the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. I am Jared Morris. I'm here with Ryan Phillips. The coach, Brian Tonsoni, is going to be joining us here pretty soon. But let's start this show the way that we start every show, and that is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And we all know what the banner moment is in terms of a play in this game. It's Rob Phinisee, big shot Rob, having an absolute legacy game. The kid from Lafayette was not going to go out never beating Purdue. And he stepped up today in a way that is just unbelievable. It's the kind of performance that we will tell our kids about in terms of a guy persevering and stepping up in a big way. And I can't imagine a fan base collectively being happier for a guy than Indiana fans were for Rob Phinisee tonight. But I'm going to tell you something. The banner moment actually happened earlier this week. It wasn't the shot. It's this quote from Mike Woodson. When asked earlier this week about how he's trying to help bring Rob along and help his confidence, and he said, "I'm trying to get him to forget about the past. You're playing for Coach Woodson now, and he loves you." And look, we're going to talk about on this show some of the coaching issues down the stretch and things Mike Woodson could have done better, and there have been reasons why Indiana has lost games on the road. But you know what Mike Woodson has done? He has gotten the players and he has gotten the fans of Indiana basketball believing in themselves again. Because that is why you saw the atmosphere that you saw today. That is why you saw fans lining up, spending the night, and then lining up at Simon Skjodt Assembly Hall hours and hours and hours before the game, because they felt that something special could happen. And that is why Rob Phinisee, when absolutely needed, with his team struggling to find any sources of offense, explodes for 17 points in the first half, struggles to do anything in the second half. And then when they need a shot, they go to Rob Phinisee with, 30 seconds left. He misses the first one. What do? Mike Woodson goes right back to him. Mike Woodson has Rob Phinisee believing in himself and this program believing in itself again. So you give me all the quibbles that you want with substitution patterns and the offense and all this stuff. Mike Woodson has done the number one job he was here to do this year, which is restore the faith and the enthusiasm of this program. They had a moment tonight. They seized it. Mike Woodson has a signature victory. That stupid losing streak is over. Indiana wins. Okay. Our banner moment today, as always, brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel, now in their 5th season of sponsoring the Assembly Call and their first as the presenting sponsor of the Back Home Network. As you surely know by now, Home Field has the largest collection of vintage IU apparel that you will find anywhere, with beloved logos like 2 different versions of the Bison. And if you support other college teams or have people in your life who do, Home Field probably has something for them too. Their product line now extends to more than 120 different schools with unique vintage logos for all of them. And no matter what you buy, you know it will be comfortable and the colors will last through many washings. Plus, you're supporting an Indiana-based company that came up through Kelly. What could be better than that? Go to homefieldapparel.com, use our promo code HOME, HOME, to get 15% off your first order. That's promo code HOME for 15% off. Once again, the website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. All right, it's time to move the ball, find the open man, get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team, and I'll go get some oxygen. And we will start with Ryan Phillips. Ryan, what do you have to rant about tonight?
First things first, it was a perfect evening because Indiana won and Purdue lost. It doesn't matter that it was in the same game. This would be a great night anyway. Folks, that is the biggest win Indiana has had since the watch shot. 100%. biggest
100%.
win they have had since the Watt shot. And the reason why is because it's a win you can build a program on. A top 5 team came to your house with a live crowd, and you showed them that they are not going to walk out with a win. So we've had opportunities like this in the past to have big wins and had it fall short. What I'm going to talk about tonight are the 2 groups on this team that were the most maligned coming in: the point guards and the second unit. Our starters lost against their starters tonight. You look at the plus minus down the stretch. The starters lost against Purdue's starters, and the matchups are not great. This was a bad matchup for Indiana on paper. It just is because of their size and their shooting ability. You can't pick on one. You're going to get beat both ways. The second unit, and I know plus minus is not a great statistic, but we're just going to use it to illustrate something because I think it's instructive in this game. Rob Finney was plus 15. Jordan Geronimo plus 17. Trey Galloway plus 15. Tamar Bates plus 11. Those were the only guys on the team in the plus minus, on the positive side of the plus minus. That tells you a lot. Those guys on that second unit played their asses off. They did not allow Purdue to have an inch on the court. That stretch in the second half of the first half, when they were on the floor, they were doing everything they could to prevent Purdue from doing anything it wanted. And that's the difference. That was the difference. Purdue was going to have to fight for everything, and they set that tone. The starting unit sort of did a little at times. I mean, they were all playing hard. Everybody on this team in this game played very hard, and the crowd lifted them, and that's a big part of the story. But that second unit getting in the game, that was when Purdue started to realize, oh, this is going to be hard. And when they have 28 points at the half, a lot of that was with those backups in. Trace Jackson-Davis, as Jared said, barely played. Those backups, Michael Dirk, give him a lot of credit tonight. 24 minutes, and he's been playing about 5. He was so tired at the end of the game. You could see he could barely get up and down the floor because that's a guy who hasn't been playing very much. He gave 24 hard minutes and did as best as he could against those big guys from Purdue when he hasn't been playing at all. The other thing I want to talk about, the point guards. We've criticized the point guards on here. They're too uneven. They don't step up when they're needed. Xavier Johnson, especially early in the game when he scored like 6 of Indiana's first 8 points and was the only reason it wasn't a double-digit lead right off the beginning for Purdue. Finished with 18 points, was aggressive, was attacking against those big guys and that athletic front that they have. He just kept attacking and had the stones to take a couple threes when he hasn't been great at it this year. And then, of course, as Jared mentioned, Rob Finney dropping 20 in his final home game against Purdue, we're assuming. 4 steals also for Rob. He was all over the court and, again, just led the way. It's not a contest for who the game ball was tonight because of what Rob did. So those 2 groups who have gotten the most criticism from us and from others coming into this game stepped up in the biggest game they needed to. That bodes well for moving forward. Now, of course, as we always say, how do you handle success now? You've had the biggest win the program has had in more than a decade. Since our first season of doing this show, the biggest win they've had. We had to go that long between huge, big program-shifting wins. And those guys that needed to step up, stepped up, and that was the difference. And that's going to be the difference, those point guards and that second unit, because you know what you're going to get from the starters. They're going to play well. They're going to keep you in it, whatever. But the getting over the top in big games, that's going to rely on those point guards and that second unit. That's where you have to beat teams. And honestly, that's where they beat them tonight.
I'm just so happy for Rob Finney. So happy for Rob Finney. Coach, it's Tonsoni time. What's on your mind?
Hey, what a night. I didn't even have to drive over to school. I just grabbed my computer and just ran down the highway yelling at all these Purdue fans around here. And if you're in the Delphi area and you heard some cuss words, they were coming from me because it's well-deserved around this area. On a serious note, what an outstanding effort. There were some lulls at the start of the game. There was a lull there at the end offensively. And this team just battles. We can talk about certain things that went well, didn't go well, but this team really, really plays hard. They battle. They don't give up. And you know, everyone kind of had the air just sucked out of them when Indiana was down 2 late. Like, man, we led the whole way. We had a good run, and now it's just going to be taken out from under us. And those guys refuse to lose. And Rob hits a big shot, Rob style. If we don't play that sound clip, if you haven't already, maybe.
Rob style.
Yeah, when you
Rob
got
style.
That's right.
We got it.
Good for him. And, you know, as much as sometimes the the pick and roll ball screen, stand in the corner offense drives us crazy. It works if you have guards who can score, because then you got to come off shooters and you got to do some things. So, there's some method to the madness, even though we didn't like it. But what a win. It's time. It's the state of Indiana. It's Indiana basketball. We need to get back into this rivalry and start winning. And he promised that, and Coach Woodson, and he delivered. So congratulations to him and the guys on the team. Just an outstanding all-around effort.
Boy, he sure did. And there are just, in a game like this, there's so many storylines that we can go to, but Ryan, I want to go off something else that you said, because, the story of this game ultimately is the way that the point guards played, Rob Phinisee and Xavier Johnson. Someone had to step up without you being able to get, your normal offense from a guy like Trayce Jackson-Davis, who wasn't there. And those guys combined for 38 points. You know how many turnovers they had combined?
Was it 2?
0.
Oh, okay.
0 turnovers combined. Indiana had 3 turnovers total as a team.
Yeah, one was a team turnover on like a loose ball, I think. Or no, it was a shot clock, right? I think. I don't remember what it was, but it was a team. There was one team turnover, and then Trayce had 2 on bad passes.
Hang on, I lost the audio. You guys talk.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I'm looking. Okay. I'm looking at it now. Trayce had 2 turnovers on bad passes, and another was a team turnover, and that's it. Nobody other than that turned the ball over. All those guys playing all those minutes did not turn the ball over. And what's my favorite part of that is how many turnovers Purdue had? 12. So Indiana forced turnovers as well and scored 15 points off those turnovers. So I just think it's – and the other thing that's fascinating about this, and we'll get into it in statistics or whatever, but points in the paint, that was where Purdue was probably going to beat Indiana, was with those big guys attacking constantly. Indiana, 30 points in the paint. Purdue, 28. So Indiana's defense was not as helpless as we thought it would be against those big guys.
I mean, we'll talk about this when we get into, inside the numbers, but there's a lot of numbers in this game that when you say them, if you had predicted at the beginning of the game, you would have thought that Indiana lost the game based on how some of the numbers went. Now, some others went in their favor, but I want to get back to the point about Xavier Johnson. He's a guy that's been under fire from a portion of the fan base, and he had a couple comments on Twitter, about, clearly he has heard some of that stuff. And what he did at the beginning of the game cannot be overlooked, because Purdue came out in the first 8 minutes of this game and took it to Indiana, to the point where I think a lot of us were like, oh man, like we're kind of barely hanging on here. And Xavier Johnson accounted for all 8 of Indiana's first 8 points. He had 6 points. He had that alley-oop to Trayce Jackson-Davis. It's the only thing that kept Indiana alive. And, there's
could have been buried right off the jump. Yep.
Could have been buried. But he is here for games like this. He is a guy who, for all of his faults, does not back down from a challenge. And tonight, we needed someone with that kind of edge, especially at the beginning of the game, to force the issue and to not, look at this. He doesn't have the bad muscle memory of games against Purdue because he hasn't been in them. And he just went out and did his thing. And that was huge. And I'll tell you the other guy, Trey Galloway, when he was recruited, if you think back to when he committed to Indiana, we said, you know what, this is the type of guy that has been missing from the Indiana-Purdue rivalry on the Indiana side. A guy with an edge, a guy who's going to get every 50-50 ball, a guy who may not be quite as athletic as the guy he's guarding, but is going to find a way just through competitiveness and grit and understanding the angles and being in the right spots to get stuff done. And he defended Jaden Ivey as well as anybody tonight, and also was able to manufacture some points, and when Indiana, we'll talk about it in meaningful moments, but, when things are really going, poorly, he was able to get that transition bucket. So to me, there's a lot of things that were different about this Indiana team. Obviously, a confident Rob Phinisee, that's different. But the mentality of Xavier Johnson and Trey Galloway, and specifically Coach, their competitiveness and their fight, because for all of their mistakes and, their erraticness and their turnovers and all that stuff, those guys never stop coming. And that's what Indiana has been missing in this Purdue series, is the guys that aren't going to sit there and think about it and worry about it and wonder and, put their heads down because of a bad play. They just keep coming at you and coming at you. And Purdue hasn't seen that from us a lot lately. And I thought those 2 guys specifically brought that tonight in a huge way. You're muted, Coach.
I thought the competitiveness was great. I thought the first 8 minutes, we got down 8. And you were wondering, man, where this game's going to go. And then all of a sudden it just changed. And it changed because of some of the guys coming off the bench. I would add Tamar in there too. I thought his juice,
his effort was great,
was fantastic. Yeah. And that just changed. because it really knocked Purdue back. Instead of Indiana taking punches, those guys with their energy and how hard they played, how hard they were cutting when they were moving on offense, but defensively, really short of just a couple of free open plays early, the defense really pushed Purdue backwards. And defense was the name of the game tonight.
There were no open shots for most of that game for Purdue.
Yeah, and if it was just a mistake, out of bounds play mistake, those types of things. But
a bad communication on a switch, or something like
and
that.
Geronimo getting caught up in a screen. But yeah, energy, guys. And I will add too, basketball is a game of athletes, and I don't want to disparage anyone on the Indiana team, but you need to have some quickness and some athleticism out there to be able to guard some of the multiple actions that Purdue runs, because they're so quick with their movement. You've got to be able to counter that. And I think Trey and Tamar and Geronimo came in and were able to do that. And all those cuts that Purdue makes that are so hard, it was really good to see that competitiveness and that athletic ability really push Purdue back once they got that 8-0 lead.
Yeah, and you guys talked about how they didn't get a lot of open shots, but early in the game they did. Gillis with an open three, Stefanovic with an open three, Ivy got an open three, and they actually missed a few open threes. And that's where I thought the bench came in, and it's like they were like, we're not going to do this. Like, I'm not going to get caught on a screen. I'm not going to let you get a wide open three. And they just ramped that up. And that is the kind of, typically in this rivalry for the past half decade, outside of a couple of games, like the 48-46 game where Indiana's effort and toughness was unbelievable. We just fell short, but really outside of that game, when Purdue has punched us, we haven't really punched back. And today we had guys who punched back, and I think coming in, we knew it was, just let me finish. We knew it was unlikely that Indiana was going to win this game, because Purdue is a great offensive team and a lot was going to have to go right. And a lot did go right, but I think for all of us, what we wanted to see more than anything, in part because we knew that it would help lead to a victory, is show us that fight. Show us, that this rivalry means as much to you as it does to Purdue. Because I think what's really hurt about this 9-game losing streak is not just the loss, the notches in the loss column. Those hurt. It's feeling like Purdue has come in and won the game because they've taken it more seriously and cared more. When we've walked out of most Purdue games feeling that way. That was not the case tonight. And, for all of Indiana's faults and the things that didn't go their way, as they say, ball don't lie. And I thought for the most part tonight, Indiana was the aggressor. Indiana was the team getting more 50-50 balls. And, in a way, you can say the basketball gods smiled on them, but I think that stuff just adds up and it leads to a win, even when the other stuff you're doing isn't there. That's the big difference. And that's why this was an inspiring performance to watch from these Hoosiers with so much going against them. But they came together and did what we've been wanting to see for 5 freaking years.
Yeah, and Jared, do you remember the last time we were in Bloomington? And obviously, come February 5th, guys, we're going to be doing a show. That's a little plug right there. They call it in the business. But no, it's the last time we were there, Indiana played Purdue in 2020. And that was the game where Bob Knight came back. And it felt like that whole game, the crowd was so fired up and amped up, they were looking for a reason to explode. And for that entire game, the Hoosiers gave that crowd zero reason to explode.
Nothing.
They didn't have the fight. Purdue not only was more talented and better offensively and better defensively, they outworked Indiana. Tonight, Indiana outworked Purdue. That was the difference in the game. Simple as that. That defensive effort was the difference in the game. I'm seeing in the chat, people talking about Miller Kopp, and Miller Kopp didn't do anything offensively. They didn't really get him any open looks. And we can talk about how they need to start working to get shooters open looks, because he and, Parker combined for 3 3-point attempts, and that they're your starting wing guys. They need to do more than that. So we'll talk about that. But Miller Kopp was on Sasha Stefanovic when he was in there. Sasha Stefanovic is a lethal 3-point shooter. He was 1 of 7 tonight. Why? Because Kopp was in his back pocket all night long. Now, if Kopp was guarding Jaden Ivey, Ivey probably goes for 30, because that's not a good matchup. But Kopp was in Stefanovic's back pocket all night. The effort was there from everybody up and down the lineup. Parker Stewart played Jaden Ivey pretty tight in the first half. You knew Ivey was going to get loose, and as soon as he did, they had to take him off. Parker's not quick enough to guard Jaden Ivey. But the effort was there all night. When he got beat, he didn't shrug his shoulders and get beat again because of that. He stepped up. Trey Galloway, we're going to talk about him. He's the guy who should guard Jaden Ivey for the rest of the time that he's on the floor. In my opinion, I think Xavier Johnson did a nice job, but Xavier Johnson needs to be on Thompson. Trey Galloway is not as athletic as Jaden Ivey. He's not as quick as Jaden Ivey. You know what he did? He annoyed the hell out of Jaden Ivey, baited him into a flagrant foul, and then used his 6'5" frame to wear him down and get in front of him and run with him the entire game. He's not more athletic or quicker than Jaden Ivey. The only reason he was able to stay with him is effort. Effort is what wins you basketball games. Effort is what gets you rebounds. Effort is what makes defenses work. That's the lesson from this game. Indiana played, I won't say they played a complete 40 minutes. They played like 35 because there's a little lull in there. And I think those guys were just tired and it wasn't great late. But effort is what won this game. Indiana outworked, out-toughed, and out-efforted Purdue. And when was the last time we could possibly have said that? It's been a long time.
2016.
This is a formula, by the way, that travels. This can go on the road and win. You walk into a room, I don't care what your shooting percentage is. I don't care how you do from the free throw line. If you outwork the other teams consistently in the Big Ten, you will win games on the road, at home, wherever. So this is something they have to bottle and continue. And tonight was the example of this is how it works, guys. This is how it works.
Coach, last word on this, and then we'll go to meaningful moments.
No, it's just this program's needed it for a long, long time. And, you know, this team has done some really good things, but there was some doubt after losing the 4 games the way that they did on the road against, you know, okay competition. And now the number 4 team comes in and, you know, if you took off your crimson colored glasses, everything pointed to Purdue being the better team, but Indiana out-toughed them. And that's something that's been a Purdue staple. And so this calms a lot of my insecurities. And as I was driving over, I thought, you know, it's time to really maybe just relax a little bit in the nitpicking and try to get back to a little level of trust. But you know,
I thought we were all going to fight via text message there over the 5 minutes.
There are some things that were really concern me, and if we get to them, fine. If we want to save them for later, that's fine too. But it's just a relief. If you would have heard the Tonsoni household, you would have had to beep out a lot. Amy was just laughing. Brent and I were running around with our heads cut off. It just released a lot for fans, for the players, and what a good game for a Rob Finney. Geronimo can hold his head high. Tamar, again, winning is a habit. And Indiana had lost 4 games, and that losing had started to sink in again, that you can't win on the road. You can't play 2 consecutive halves. A game like this pays dividends down the road, and you got to back it up. You got to back it up Sunday. You can't come out and lay an egg. But I think this was just a gritty effort, maybe not a perfect effort, but a gritty effort, and that wins. And that'll take you places, and it's a quad 1 win that won't go away. So that means a lot.
And by the way, last statement here before we move on to meaningful moments. There are some victories that are total program wins. And I'm not just talking about the players and the coaches and the administrators. I'm talking about the fans and everyone. And the energy in that arena,
hosts.
the energy, you know, just all throughout Bloomington. It was, you know, I started to feel this, and several people texted me out of the blue and said this. They said it's the first time it's felt like IU-Kentucky 2011 since that game. And that's the same vibe I was getting all day long. And by the way, you're damn right I'm wearing a suit jacket, and I wore the suit jacket the entire time, and my wife looked at me like I was crazy.
You are.
The first thing I said is, okay, I may be, but the first thing I said is, I said, I am not going to accept any slander from a Texas A&M fan about crazy rituals. That's number 1. But number 2, I'm telling you, you guys can think I'm crazy, but I think in games like this, there's some kind of cosmic thing that happens when an entire fan base is pulling together and wearing the silly jackets and wearing the clothes that matters and showing up at Assembly Hall early and doing all that stuff. When everybody's pulling together, and we haven't felt that in so long. And I'm just telling you, I believe that stuff matters.
Quickly,
why I wore the jacket, and I'm going to keep it on.
Quickly, you were there. I wasn't very excited. I was about the game tonight because that malaise had set in over the years, to be honest. Was I rooting? Did I want them? Normally, I'd put the candy stripes on and have everything. I wasn't. I was just maybe fearful of coming on and talking about the 10th straight loss or whatever. But you're absolutely right. It's freeing. It's freeing. It's back.
It's
and I don't want to say it's back because I don't like that statement.
It doesn't matter about it being. It doesn't matter about it being back.
But it's just a win that matters.
The thing is, Coach, the program can breathe now.
Yes,
like that's what it is.
Perfect.
There's a catharsis. The program can breathe. You know
Yes,
what? And we it's very possible with a quick turnaround. Who knows how Trace is? Michigan's playing a little bit better. We might come out and lose that game. You know, do you know what happened the game after the Kentucky game or, whatever like that? Hopefully we win and back it up. But what we saw tonight, to your point, Ryan, is something that they can bottle up and take with them. And it's got everybody pulling in the same direction again. And that's all that matters on this night.
Hey guys, Purdue anointed by some a writer in Indianapolis as potentially one of the greatest college basketball teams of all time, the most talented college basketballs of all time, teams of all time entering the season. You know where they sit in the Big Ten? They're 4-3. You know who's right ahead of them? Indiana's 5-3. So I just thought I wanted to point that out. I thought that you'd want to know what it looks like right now. All right, moving on.
Good. Hey, feels good. We no trash talk on them. They're an excellent team. They're going to win a lot of games, and that's why this win was so meaningful. So, hat tip to them. It was a cute little commercial that you had. But Purdue, you will always be located in the Hoosier State, and tonight restored the natural order of things. Thank you very much. Okay, coming up as we continue our breakdown of Indiana's thrilling 3-point victory over Purdue, I will point out tonight's meaningful moments that you might have missed, and then we will go inside the numbers to highlight the most important statistical notes from the game. You are listening to the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
What's going on? It's Christian Wofford. What's the only thing better than an epic buzzer beater? Celebrating it with friends afterwards. Join my guys, Jared, Andy, Ryan, and Coach on the Assembly Call after every IU game. Go Hoosiers.
You are listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Jared Morris here with the coach, Brian Tonsoni and Ryan Phillips, and we are breaking down Indiana's victory over Purdue. And it is time now for tonight's meaningful moments that you might have missed. And real quick, tonight's meaningful moment is actually being presented in partnership with our friends at Hoosier Ticket Project. And they aren't paying us for this. We just want to support their cause because they have helped so many IU families remove the financial barriers to creating meaningful moments at Assembly Hall. And that's really what this all is about. The project was launched unofficially a few years back by the Mop Lady Twitter account, and now it is an official 501(c) charitable organization, which means that your contributions are tax deductible. And here's what we are doing. As Ryan mentioned earlier, we're coming into town on February 5th for the Illinois game, and we want as many Assembly Call listeners to be there as possible so we can meet you face-to-face. And so Josh at Hoosier Ticket Project has pledged a couple of tickets to that game to the Assembly Call listeners who need the most. So what you need to do is go to their website, HoosierTicketProject.org, click the request button, and then share your story. And make sure to note that you're an Assembly Call listener. We'll choose one entry to get the tickets. And then, of course, we want to plan a way to meet you at the game. So again, the website is HoosierTicketProject.org. And if you don't need tickets, but you have some to donate or want to make a financial contribution, click the red donate button when you go. That is HoosierTicketProject.org. All right, guys, let's talk meaningful moments that you might have missed. And, for the first one, I want to talk about Race Thompson, who, 9 points, 9 rebounds. Know he kind of, had some struggles at certain points in the game. But there was one moment he had, and maybe it was a questionable play, but I thought it really said something. Early in the game, as you mentioned, Trey Galloway must have annoyed Jaden Ivey in some way. Because Jaden Ivey
was building for a few possessions too.
Yeah, away from the ball with nothing to do with the play, just took him and shoved him. It was not a good moment for Jaden Ivey, a terrific player who clearly just lost it for a moment. And that's fine. A flagrant one was called as it should have been. Everybody went about their business. Later on in the second half, Jaden Ivey had the ball out at the top of the key, was dribbling, got fouled, and then continued on toward the basket. And Race Thompson gave him a really hard foul that also got called for a flagrant. And again, you can question that, and maybe that kind of borders on a dirty play. I thought it was actually really indicative of a team that has each other's back and that is willing to make tough, hard fouls when you need to. And a guy that was basically showing, I've got my teammates back. this guy is killing us right now, and he shoved my teammate to the ground, and I'm going to give him a hard foul when he comes in, when he continues coming in after he got fouled. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on that, because, again, it's a borderline play, and I never want to see an Indiana player do something that's going to hurt another guy. But there was something to that with Race kind of being an enforcer, being tough. That's the kind of stuff that you do when you're at your home court and you're going to do whatever it takes to win at home. And a guy had punked your teammate earlier. So given the context of it, I had no problem with the play. I'm glad Jaden Ivey got up and wasn't hurt, because that would have changed things. But I thought that was actually indicative of a team with a different level of toughness and a different level of togetherness. And I thought that was meaningful.
Yeah, look, first of all, I don't think he swung towards the ball and he caught arm. Now, do I know if it was intentional or not? I thought it was a weak flagrant, because as far as Race in that moment is concerned, the play's still going on because Jaden Ivey's attacking the hoop. The whistle wasn't that long. It wasn't like a whistle at the top of the key and then he kept going to the hoop to do something and Race took him out. But I also noticed that Race knocked him down and didn't dive in to pick him up. He was just kind of like, hey. And what he was trying to do, if it was past the play, was the old Kevin Garnett thing of, you're not getting an easy layup after Kevin Garnett would jump up and steal every 3-pointer that someone would shoot after the buzzer and block him. There's a lot of guys that do that now. And I think that's what Race was kind of going for, in my opinion, was to just stop that drive and that, letting him just lay it up, even though the play was dead. I will say Xavier Johnson immediately jumped down to help him up, and the Purdue guys shoved him off, which, that happens. I'm not upset about that. But here's the thing. Race Thompson tonight was the captain of that team. If you watched that game, defensively, he was the one trying to keep everyone organized. And because he was helping out so much to help everybody else, because again, they're a little outmanned against Purdue, especially the starters, he was late to recover sometimes because he was helping everybody else out. He didn't have his best offensive game because it's tough to go up against those big guys for a guy like Race. And he gets a lot of his offense when Trace Jackson-Davis is on the floor and the attention is paid to him. So when it switched over to Race, it was tough for him to get going offensively. That dude brought it tonight, though. He was all over the floor.
Yeah,
he was helping defensively. He basically bodied up Travion Williams and frustrated him all night. He tried to do his best when he was on Edey, although that was mostly Durr, but he would swing down and help, a little double team or something. And a couple times because he did that, a guy was open from beyond the arc and all that. But it's a tough choice for a big man there. Do you help or do you stay on the shooters? Edey's going to get an easy bucket if you don't. I thought Trace was fantastic all night long, and I think he deserves a ton of credit for this win because he was clearly late in the second half, along with a lot of those other guys who were was exhausted, and he played 18 minutes in that second half, and he gave everything he had, even when the game wasn't going his way. He continued to plug away. So I loved what Race Thompson did tonight, and we've always said he's a guy who doesn't have to fill the box score to have a huge impact on a game. He rebounded really well tonight, especially given who he was going up against, and didn't allow offensive rebounds either. And that was a huge, thing there. So I loved what Race Thompson brought all night. I have no problem with what he did on that swing, even if it was a flagrant, even if it crosses that line. I think that he was trying to say, hey, you're not getting this. The play's over. Don't get in here. That's not what you do. It's like if a guy runs in and dunks it after the hoop, I'm fine with somebody shoving him out of the way. That's not what you do.
He played like a guy who was sick and tired of losing to Purdue.
Yep.
Is the way that he played tonight.
He did.
I'll be brief here because I'm in the minority. I don't like it. It was 50-42. It gives them 2 shots and the ball, and it gets their best player a lot of juice, who only had 5 points at the time and ends up with 21. When you're kicking someone's butt, you let them suffer. Ivey was mentally out of the game until that point. Plus, you could hurt a player that way. If this is Brad Davidson, we're spending 30 minutes saying how bad a play it was. So our rose-colored glasses, because it was our guy knocking someone down, I don't think that's good basketball. I don't. I don't like flagrant ones. I don't like undercutting. I don't like the pop in the collar stuff. It doesn't matter. You win the right way. You win by pushing them back like we did and Rob stepping up and hitting shots. You don't have to do that dirty stuff because dirty programs don't get respect. Now, is Race a dirty player? No. I thought he was swinging for the ball and missed it and got the arm. So I think it was an honest, good flagrant. But he should have just jumped up or something or I don't know, or just let that go at that point. I marked that down as a meaningful moment because I thought if it turns the tide, that's something, when Ivey pushes Trey down, that turned the tide a little bit. I forget when that was. That was at 5:26, and Indiana only was down, just a
They
2
went
or
on like
3
a
point
14.
lead.
They
and
went on
a
like a
14-0 run
lead.
right after that, and then 50-42, and the game got close. So that's just might be the coach in me. I understand where everyone's coming from. I like standing up for your teammates and doing that just as well. I just would rather do it a different way.
Yeah, I mean, look, Coach, there's some merit to what you say. There's no question about it. Like I said, it's kind of a borderline.
Flagrant.
No, I didn't think it was egregious, but I
Me
think
neither.
Coach has a
Me
point.
neither.
I think for me, the reason why I side on liking it and think it was a meaningful play in a positive way is just because it's felt like Purdue has punked us for 5 years. And to me, it was Ray saying, I'm sick of this. I'm not letting you do that to my guy, and I'm not letting you do this in our gym. And maybe there's a different way to do it, a better way to do it, but that's the message I took. And I just wonder if his teammates took that message because he's a leader, and so for what you lose with Ivy getting into the game and all that stuff, because you're right there, I wonder what impact it has in the locker room. And I don't know. But it was a meaningful moment because there's a lot of different ways to interpret it, and it was a turning point in the game. So the other one that I want to mention that I thought was just absolutely huge, and really could have turned the game the other way if it went differently for Indiana, is late in the game at 61-60, and Indiana is just hanging on. I mean, we're not getting good shots. X is having to force shots up, or Race is taking a three-pointer, or, we have no offense going. And Purdue takes it down, and Isaiah Thompson gets a wide open three-pointer, which looked like it was going in. And if it does, and Purdue goes up 63-61, it honestly felt like it would have been a backbreaker.
Was in and
He
out.
missed it. They almost got the rebound, but we ended up somehow getting the rebound. Trey Galloway goes the other way for a transition bucket, which honestly felt like the only way we were going to score at that time.
Yep.
And that got us back to 63-60. And honestly, I'm not sure that we win without that play. And that was, again, you have to have some things go your way. A good three-point shooting team, they missed some shots down the stretch. You need that to happen. You got to get a 50-50 ball, which Indiana did. And Trey's got to go down and convert, which he did. And just a huge play for Indiana because I think it set the stage then for what they were able to do down the stretch to close it out, the 3-point victory. But I think the game goes a lot differently if that play goes differently.
That's the one I had marked down, Jared, too. They didn't score until Rob's three after that. It was a 4-minute dry spell after that. So yeah, if they don't make that, they're down 4 at the end instead of 2. And able to make that 3. So I thought that was huge, especially with how the game was going and how stagnant that offense was and how tired that group was. So clearly tired. I mean, I know you've only got a certain amount of timeouts and you got to hold on to some, but that group was so tired and just they've been in there for so long. And I get it. You may not have had other options at that point of the game. Maybe you build in some subs early in the second half. But that group was exhausted, and that play seemed to sort of like settle things a little bit until Purdue wound up taking the lead. But without that basket, I agree that game is real bad.
Add Parker Stewart's knock away and drive down and getting fouled too when Indiana was struggling, and he had struggled to guard Ivy there for a couple times. And he you mentioned it earlier. Those guys that struggled guarding could have hung their head, but they kept fighting and fighting. But that poke away. And I think he hit at least 1, if not 2 free throws there. So that those little things, help.
Hey, and look, Trace Jackson Davis obviously didn't play a lot and didn't have a huge impact on the game. But I thought was what he was able to do, in 2 of the final possessions Indiana had was really important. They ended up clearing it out for him on the left wing. He had a nice drive in. Now he missed the free throws, but it was finally something good going at the basket for Indiana offensively. Again, he wasn't able to hit the free throws, but then later on when he gets fouled after, Ivy misses that shot, Indiana's up 1, he goes down and knocks down both of those free throws. Trace is a guy who he's missed a lot of free throws, but man, you think back to the free throws at the end of regulation against Syracuse, like he's a guy when he focuses, he can make free throws. I swear, sometimes he goes up there, he's maybe stiff. Half focused but man, when he really locks in, he makes them. And those 2 free throws were obviously really important because it gave, Purdue didn't have many options there on what they could do on that final play.
Yeah, they couldn't go full court. They take a 3.
And boy, We've seen Chad Austin, that shot that Jaden Ivey hit. We've seen Purdue make that in Assembly Hall before. So we were owed one.
It didn't go in, Jared. It didn't go in. That's all that matters. It didn't go in.
I know. And you know what? I'm okay. There's sometimes you need a little bit of Assembly Hall magic to win a game like this. And I think tonight we had a little bit of that magic. Guys, any other meaningful moments that stood out to you that we haven't mentioned yet?
What I enjoy is that Purdue had to change their ball screen coverage because they were going under on X and they were going under on Rob. And then Rob busts some threes. And then all of a sudden they went to an over with the drop. And then later in the game, I don't know if it was called or Travion Williams messed up. They were actually hedging and trapping our point guards, which just tells you how good the point guards were tonight in executing. And you got to, if teams go under, you got to shoot. If not, they're just going to keep going under. And then you got to run down and have late shot clock offense. And the point guards tonight really made Purdue pay. And that's, if Woodson's going to run that offense, they're going to need to continue to do that. Then you'll start seeing people help off shooters and tagging the roll and doing things like that. And you'll see some more open shots for the inside and the outside game. So this needs to continue. We've seen it. Rob's had 2 good home games, Ohio State and Purdue. He needs to make sure we have more of those than the games where he has struggled. This is a point guard offense. And that was a meaningful moment when I saw Matt Painter having to change his ball screen coverage. Meant a lot that we were doing a lot of good things.
Rob and X combined to go for 6 of 11 from 3. Everybody else 0 for 9. If you don't have them, you don't win the game. As simple as that.
Oh my gosh. I mean, if you don't have them playing out of their minds, it's a 10, 15 point loss. Yeah,
exactly. Absolutely. So they hit their shots. They stepped up. They hit their shots. X hit a couple free throws. Early in the first half, I think, it was our first points. I think he hit those free throws when, Purdue was just came out hard and Johnson kind of settled things down by hitting those. So, they played out of their minds, played really well, and absolutely deserve it. All the credit for it.
One other thing I liked, unfortunately, that the other team did when they fed to post and got doubled was they flared a guard on the weak side. I'd love for Woodson to watch that tape. And flare or screen away from Miller Kopp instead of just standing them there when teams double team, because you mentioned it, TJD had a couple turnovers because it's hard when you got big bodies double teaming you and pushing you back out. If everyone's stagnant and standing, if you run some flare screens or some down screens to the corner while they're double teaming, now that takes away some help and some vision and it creates some openings. But Purdue did that once and got an open look. And I wrote that down. IU needs to maybe steal that.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk numbers, gentlemen. This segment sponsored by the Power Rank, where our friend Ed uses data and analytics to make accurate football and college basketball predictions. And Ed also writes an incredible March Madness guide every year. We are going to have a special offer for you on that once March rolls around. And this game, obviously, for Indiana will go a long way toward having them be a participant in March Madness. Still a lot of work to do, but this is obviously a big one to get for those purposes. But for now, if you want sports betting advice with a PhD edge, or if you just like understanding sports at a more analytical level, definitely subscribe to Ed's free newsletter. Go to thepowerrank.com/AC to subscribe. That's thepowerrank.com/AC. All right, guys, let's dissect the numbers from this game. I really thought, when you kind of looked at the formula for how to beat Purdue, it had been, they needed to not shoot great from 3-point range. And after a really good start, they missed a lot down the stretch, and they finished 8 of 23, which is what Indiana needed to do. And I thought their ability to force tough shots in the second half and, in the second part of the first half was much better than what they did early when they were, Mason Gillis was getting wide open threes, and they were getting wide open ones the whole night. And Ryan, you mentioned, 6 for 20 for Indiana. Again, if you tell me Trace Jackson Davis plays 11 minutes and Indiana makes 6 threes, I'm not thinking we have much of a chance in this one.
Absolutely not.
But we did. And the reason why we did is because we only turned it over 3 times, and so that ability to just get more shots, just get more opportunities. Because you know what those opportunities were? A Race Thompson fadeaway that usually isn't going to go in, that goes in. Michael Durr making a 15
shot, by the way.
It was a huge shot. No, at the start of the second half, think about the shots we were making at the start of the second half. We had to rely on a turnaround by Race, a 17-footer by Durr. Like, these are not shots that you run the offense for. But if you're going to win a game like this, sometimes those shots go in for you. Now, Race tips one in for them on the other end. So it kind of evens itself out.
That was so just an evidence of a guy needing a break. Like, because he jumped early, but then he didn't have the energy to like actually grab the ball. He was going to kind of tip it to himself because he was coming down and he tapped it right in. I mean, that was just a guy tired and losing a little bit of focus because he played so much.
But the big differences for Indiana, and these two differences actually go together, is Indiana gets 35 points off of their bench. They outscore Purdue 35-4. And some of the Purdue bench guys had to play. Travion Williams is a big part of what Purdue does. Jaden Ivey had to sit in the first half. Like, they needed their bench to step up, and their bench didn't. And sometimes that's why the home team wins these games, because role players, bench players tend to play better at home. And what the bench did that was so good is with their defense, they forced a lot of turnovers. Rob had 4 steals. Trey Galloway was active. And so in a category where Indiana has really suffered this year, points off turnovers, Purdue scores 5 points off turnovers. Indiana scores 15 points off turnovers. And again, the bench had a lot to do with it. So how do you win a game when the numbers that you go into it thinking you need to control don't go their way? Well, stuff that hasn't happened a lot happens. The bench steps up. Indiana wins the turnover battle, wins points off turnovers. Those were huge, huge parts of this game for Indiana. And if you can take some of that, when you're getting a good game from Trace Jackson Davis, when you're getting Parker Stewart and Miller Kopp contributing offensively, now you got a team that can do some things, but for this Indiana team, they didn't have it all clicking tonight, but they had enough. And those numbers, really tell the story for why.
There's one that stands out to me, Jared. I mean, Purdue entered, and I still think they are the most efficient offense in the country. Number one, not close. 0.824 points per possession in the first half. That defense was phenomenal. And if you look at the stats from that half, the bench played, Durr played 10, Geronimo played 11, Galloway played 13, Bates played 7 minutes. It wasn't the starters just doing that. It wasn't best on best. They survived. And in some cases thrived with the backups in there. And I think that is huge, as I talked about earlier. And for the game, 0.985 points per possession. And, as you would expect with Trace Jackson Davis out, Purdue out rebounded Indiana 39-30, and a lot of that was in the second half. They had 18 rebounds in the second half, but Indiana stuck with it. And you didn't get a lot of second chance opportunities despite that rebounding disparity. A lot of that was just Indiana missing shots in the second half and giving up rebounds. So I also would say, Indiana only had 6 assists tonight, because a lot of what they were doing was sort of one-on-one driving and things like that. I'm okay with that because the action was good. And the thing is about the one thing you look is at assist to turnovers. Well, they only had 3 turnovers. So it wasn't like they weren't moving the ball. They were moving the ball and they weren't giving it up. So some stats in there. And again, if you look at this, as we said before the game, as you said, Indiana makes 6 threes and shoots 30% from 3, shoots 58% from the line, shoots 42% from the field. Okay, they didn't win. That's just what you would think. You think it's a 10-point, 15-point Purdue win, but it was all on just out playing and out efforting. I mean, all the stats scream that. If you just look down the list at the stats, it just screams that Indiana worked harder. They outworked Purdue.
Yeah, and you know what Purdue fans are saying on their post-game show, if they have a post-game show. Not sure if they do. They're looking at 7 for 17 from the free throw line and saying, geez, guys, we just shoot our normal percentage from the free throw line, we win this game. And that's true. But, I will say 7 of those free throws, came from Zach Edey, who's not a great free throw shooter. And he finished, 2 for 7. Ivy went 5 for 7. But
Travion missed 2.
And there are sometimes, we all kind of laugh like, free throw defense, that that's real funny. Sometimes
a lot of it's who you foul.
Well, it's who you foul and just how tough and hard are guys having to play and how hard are they breathing when they step up to the free throw line, and so maybe there's something there. But ultimately, it's probably a little bit. It's also probably a little bit of good luck, and it's been a while since we've had some good luck in this rivalry.
Well, think about this. I mean,
no apologies.
You wonder why Trace Jackson Davis misses free throws late in games sometimes. And we've seen that pop up over the years. It's because he's working so hard up until that point that maybe he's a little tired. He doesn't bend his knees as much as he should. You'll see him make them early in the game a lot of times and look, hey, he's on one from the free throw line. But late in games, for big guys or for guys who handle the ball a lot, that's tough to just calm down with as much as you've run and as worn out as you are, to calm down and sink those free throws. It's really tough.
Both teams missed 10. So, yep. I mean, they had the opportunities and teams missed. This number that stands out to me is 30 shots from your point guards. And I think, I tweeted out, watch the point guard shots, I think, real early. because teams are going to make sure that the shooters don't shoot and the post players are guarded. And when our point guards have played well, and boy, I think that normally we're a little upset that those point guards get that many shots and Kopp and Stewart don't. And we're on the post game show, crying about, hey, we need to get the shooters more shots. But tonight those guys were shooters. And then, I'm sure we'll talk about this, and we've mentioned it before, is the 24 minutes for Michael Durr.
Let's give him some credit right now.
I figured the whole Hoosier Hustle is probably going to be dedicated.
Well, and we can go
there's
back
a lot of guys
to
choose for that. Actually,
but the fact
of
24 minutes. Also, hope that in game film and they watch that now you could go maybe 32 minutes with Trace Jackson Davis and go 4 or 5 minutes a half with Michael Durr, because the dude did a great job defensively, and he does some things offensively. He can hit an outside shot. I know he's struggling a little bit around the basket, but that contribution was just absolutely one that we're going to look at. Rob, we're going to look at Trey. All of those things are rightful things to look at. And Durr's stat line isn't great, but he was as important as some of the other people who accumulated stats. But the
entire bench made plays. The entire bench made plays.
Here's the thing about Durr. Going up against those big men who are the vaunted big men that Purdue just runs out there double barreled, like one after the other. 24 minutes, he's -2. He held his own. When he was in the game, Indiana held its own. And that's without their All-American. They held their own.
He outscored Travion Williams.
He did. 4 points. But he's also, here's the other thing about Durr. He's 5 fouls that we're not using. That, you're getting, Trace and foul trouble. Well, put the other 5 out there, And here, one more number that before we miss, because I'm going to forget about it. So Xavier Johnson, his issues have been turnovers and foul trouble. 0 turnovers, 0 fouls tonight. That's insane.
I tell you what, he better have earned this entire fan base's respect. If I see any more Xavier Johnson slander after this game, I think I'm going to go insane. And I've already been, on a crusade on Twitter to get him his due. This is a game where you need a guy like Xavier Johnson. You need a difference maker. And I know he's had some other games where he struggled, but it was on display tonight, everything that he brings for you, which is awesome. Okay, we got to talk more Rob Finney, and we're going to do that because the game ball segment is coming up, and I just can't imagine that the game ball is going to go anywhere else but that. So let's move on to our next segment. Coming up on the Assembly Call, we're going to hand out our game balls, the Hoosier Hustle Award. I'll talk about some lingering questions coming out of this game. Last call. We're just going to keep celebrating, baby. That's next on the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
Hi, it's Thomas Bryant. What's the only thing better than being Kentucky in the NCAA tournament? Celebrating it with friends afterwards. Join Jared, Andy, Ryan, and Coach after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers.
Thank you, Thomas. You are listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Catch us live immediately following every IU basketball game and every Thursday night at our website, assemblycall.com. Make sure that you sign up for our free IU Hoops email newsletter. There are almost 10,000 IU fans on that list. You can join at join.assemblycall.com. That's join.assemblycall.com. All right, guys, it is time for game balls, and we know who's getting the game ball. Rob Finney is getting this game ball. I don't think there's any question. Coach, I want to get your perspective on something. I mean, we'll talk about Rob, but you weren't here at the very beginning of the show. I gave the banner moment, obviously, to Rob making the shot. But, there was a quote from Coach Woodson from his press availability earlier this week where they asked him about Rob and how, he was trying to bring Rob along. And he said, I'm trying to get him to forget the past. You're playing Coach Woods now, and he loves you, which I thought was just a remarkable quote for a coach to say and was just the essence of what coaching is. And, as we mentioned, I thought we were going to fight via text at the end of the game. You guys were rightly very frustrated with the offense. And I was trying to defend, Coach Woodson and say, guys, the guy's doing some things right. And you guys were right. And I was right. And, some shots went down and we're all happy right now. But I think we come on here on the postgame show and we haven't had a lot of Assembly Call radios where we kind of step back a little bit. And I think sometimes what we miss in the rush to criticize playing the all bench unit and, the offense down the stretch and these different things that maybe tactically we wonder what's going on. What he's done from a macro sense to get players to believe in themselves, to get the program to believe in itself again. None of that is quantified on the stat sheet. I'm not sure it's fully shown up in the one-loss record yet, but I think tonight we saw it, and we especially saw it from a guy like Rob Phinisee. And so, I know that you have some questions about some of the choices he makes in the offense we're running, but I'm curious what you think about that big picture and how he's made it his goal to make guys believe in themselves, which feels like such an astute observation for what the returning players on this team needed.
Yeah, well, the coach should have the best feel for its team. If you're a good coach, you have a feel for your team and what's needed. And it's obviously Rob needs that arm around the shoulder. Hey, I'm with you kind of coach. Other players may need the, size 11.5 kick in the rear end type of coach. And that's what makes coaching so interesting, is that you'll have different personalities within one team. But yes, the macro stuff has been really good from Coach Woodson, program-wise, recruiting-wise, getting players back. We've talked all off-season about how that has been really, really good. And part of that is getting players to play at their maximum. And we all, as coaches, have those guys that we like. We all have those coaches, those players that really bug us, and we need staff and everyone to make sure we're doing what's right for the players to put them in positions to succeed. But you also got to be able to pull the trigger when they're not succeeding and saying, all right, we'll just try it next game too, or go with the different lineup. It's that fine line of you can, just allow someone to go play, and if they play badly, you're going to get a loss. So it's just he's trying really hard to make sure that the players have the utmost confidence, that he's showing a lot of confidence. And tonight it really paid off because the players responded.
It sure did. And, Ryan, it seemed like the stuff Rob was doing tonight is stuff he can do. He was making.
We've been saying that for years.
Yeah. I mean, he had a beautiful, post entry, the kind of pass that normally he would overthink and not make, and he just made it, and he was in the flow, man. He was in the zone. And it's so hard to get him there, and I think it's fair to wonder which Rob will come out against Michigan, because we've seen some good games from him before. And I don't want to waste a whole lot of time thinking about tonight as a night to celebrate what Rob has done. But, that is why it was so much fun to watch, because this is a guy that we've known is in there. When you see a guy who has struggled with confidence, and there was just a different, like there was something on his face after he missed that first shot at the end of the game where it looked like he wanted another crack at it. He
had no conscience tonight. Let's be real.
Yeah.
He had no conscience tonight. And
yeah.
So he came out, and it was almost like I've only got 2 games. This is my last home game against Purdue. I'm just going to go for it. And he just went for it. And that's, and guess what? It worked. And we've been saying that for years with Rob. When he just doesn't think and just goes, he's a really good player. He is. He does it on defense. He doesn't overthink on defense. There'll be an occasional game where he overthinks stuff on defense and gets beat and whatever, and it has a rough night, but that happens to everybody. But the games where he turns his brain off and just attacks, it's not like the guy's not talented. He's talented. He just overthinks it. And he's, on his 3-point shot, he hesitates when he's releasing. And when he drives to probe, not to score, or drives, looking for a pass or something like that, or will drive into a crowd and jump, because he's definitely not going to shoot it. He'll jump and throw it back. I mean, the one thing he did tonight that showed me that it was going to be something different, and he'd already scored some points, but he scored on the break. He scored on a breakaway. He throughout his career has been really bad in fast break situations. He usually drives to get fouled, and he'll take it up and lean into a guy and kind of throw the ball up. Well, officials know when you're doing that, and a lot of times they won't call that. And so this time he drove to score, and he threw it really high off, and it went in, and he got fouled. Now, he missed the free throw because he's not a great free throw shooter, but it was just a different Rob tonight. And guess what? That's what Indiana needs. They need that guy. Where has that guy been? Here he is. Now replicate it, please. We don't want 2 more games like the last 2, Rob. You can do this. And even if he gives you 7 consistent points a game and plays great defense, you're happy with it. Knocks down a 3 on the wing and gives you 7 points. You're happy with it. It cannot be all or nothing. Tonight, you saw what that guy is capable of. And you're right about, just to go back to Mike Woodson, you're right about the macro stuff. And we have said that repeatedly. I have said that repeatedly. I've criticized his in-game coaching a lot. and have criticized, sort of the offense running, and there's not enough movement for the wings and all of that. We can get into that on another Thursday show if we have one again this season, because all the games are on Thursdays. But in the macro, everything he has done for the health of the program has been positive, whether it's recruiting, whether it's bringing in the certain assistants that he has, whether it is, allowing Thad Matta to be there, whether it's, whatever it is, and just the attitude and personality of this team and the types of high school programs he's reaching out to about recruiting players, and all of that has been fantastic. The in-game stuff will come. He's an NBA coach coaching college basketball. As I've said many times, and people don't think about this, but they aren't the same game. The NBA is to college basketball as baseball is to softball. They're different games with different rules and different pacing and all of that. And so that will come. He'll get better at that. It's rough sometimes now. He will learn. But the macro stuff, having the players believe in themselves, but showing that he believes in them, getting them to play hard, getting them to buy in to defense. I mean, the offense, again, the system, you can have a bad offense and have good players and have a bad offense and have lulls. But defensively, 90% of defense is buy-in. You just have guys buy in and want to be playing defense. He's done that. And so when we criticize Mike Woodson, it's not that we don't like Mike Woodson or that we don't think he could be great in Indiana. It's in the micro of, hey, this was a bad call. This offense needs to be tweaked. They need to fix. He'll get it right. But overall, we have all said from the beginning, we think the macro stuff he is doing with the program is great, and Rob Phinisee tonight is an example of that.
I think it's really it's telltale too that he ends up going to Rob and he misses a three, and then he goes back to Rob too, because you do that as a coach sometimes. When someone's hot, the hot hand, it might not be the star player. The broadcast. Well, I think TJD's got to get a touch. Sometimes it's just you go by feel, and he's been in the NBA, and in those situations, I thought he really dialed up some really good plays, getting Rob shots, because they were two nice shots in that situation. The previous timeout, they came out and didn't execute, but that we don't know what went on in that timeout. He has been pretty good coming out of timeouts. It's the on-the-fly stuff late in the game that we can talk about. But Rob tonight, when he's aggressive, he is so much better, and Indiana's so much better because you can play two defensive guys. Notice they put X on Ivy too, because X is just a bulldog. All right, he just wants to win. He'll do whatever it takes to win.
I'm sure there was a little talking going on there too.
Yeah, and but having both those guys on the floor is a potential lineup discussion we should have some Thursday night when we have the radio thing too, because I kind of like having those two guys on the floor.
We've been talking about
Rob,
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It gives you some defense. It gives you two ball handlers. There's a lot of things you can do, but Rob was really good.
Yeah. One thing I want to talk about, since we're talking about Rob and we're talking about that shot at the end, to win it. Obviously, it's great. The Lafayette guy gets his second chance and knocks it down. That's just awesome. We love that moment for him, especially. One thing that we haven't mentioned is they kind of dummied Trace Jackson Davis on that play, and Galloway looked at Trace and then immediately went to Rob. And by the way, perfect pass from Trey. It wasn't a long pass, but it was right in the shooting pocket. Perfect pass from Trey Galloway, and also the fact that they used Trace as a decoy, essentially, to get your shooter open and to confuse Stefanovic on that coverage. And it was a very well-designed play. I thought the first play they ran to get Rob, I think because he was coming out away from the ball and having to shift his whole body around, I'm not sure I love that. And the shot came up short. That happens when you don't curl your body all the way around. You're kind of fading a little bit. And Rob got his whole body. He's never
been real good on shots like that.
No. And he got his whole body behind the second shot. You could see because his body rotated. He got everything behind it. The other one, he kind of stopped and it was way short. And I didn't love that play call coming out of that timeout. I loved the design of the second one, and I thought it was great. And I thought, again, the pass, it's a little thing. It's a little thing, but that pass was right exactly where you need to have it to get that shot up.
That's what Trey Galloway does, though.
He does.
He said that when he committed, he's going to do the little things that help you win games.
Dump down pass.
That's what's been missing.
The dump
Coach's
down pass.
Kid.
The dump down pass he had to race for that dunk in the second half was great as well, where he drew Edey up and then dumped it down. And he had to pass it through somebody, but he saw it perfectly and found race for an easy dunk. So I think those were his 2 assists tonight. But yep. He was really good.
Yep. All right, it is time now for the Hoosier Hustle Award. Sponsored by our friends at Evansville Security Services, based in the hometown of IU legend Calbert Chaney, who, had a few wins against Purdue in his day. Evansville Security Services provides off-duty police officers to businesses and individuals throughout Indiana. Remember, prevention cannot be measured, so let Evansville Security Services help you prevent a bad outcome today. Go to evansvillesecurityservices.com to learn more. That's evansvillesecurityservices.com. I don't know how you pick a Hoosier Hustle Award. It's got to be, you probably need this to be a team award, but I think we need to challenge ourselves, and maybe we just use it as an opportunity to pick out different guys. But if you made me pick a guy, I'm picking Xavier Johnson, because I thought, it's easy to talk about the bench guys, and I mean, all of those guys are very deserving. But I thought from tip to finish, Xavier Johnson, as he always does, gave you 100% effort at all times. He played really hard defensively. He got on the floor and got some really important loose balls. And as we talked about, when Indiana needed some offense at the beginning of each half, when nothing was happening, Xavier Johnson was there to press the issue. And sometimes, he's a guy who sometimes gets in trouble because he's constantly hustling with the basketball in his hand, sometimes to his detriment. But because he did that, he was able to find his way, to get some points when Indiana needed it. But I think his defense is sorely underrated. And I think he'll pick up full court. He'll put pressure on the ball. And have you ever seen Xavier Johnson get tired?
Nope.
Like, he's one guy that never looks tired.
I think he looked a little tired tonight, but again, he was giving so much effort. That's not surprising.
Yes.
And they just had gone so long without a break because that 4-minute timeout went into the 3-minute, area, and he just never got a breather. And he played all 20 minutes in the second half, all 20.
Yeah.
So
So
I saw him getting a little tired tonight, but the effort didn't let up.
No, and I will leave this show feeling perfectly fine if our two award winners are X and Rob, because they were two guys who absolutely rose to the occasion. But I think X deserves it hustle-wise, and I think it's a very underrated part of his game. He plays as hard as anybody.
Yep.
It's easy to say Trey Galloway plays hard, and he does. X plays just as hard at all times.
And Galloway only played 24 minutes versus the 32 in the final 20. I'm going to give it. I agree with everything you just said. I'm going to give it to Race Thompson because he did the thankless work tonight, and he had to guard those guys down low. And that was the absolute thankless job of the night. He was chasing Mason Gillis around the perimeter for a long time. He was in there, just battling. I just thought, he played 32. He played 18 in the second half. I thought that he just had one of those games that you don't get rewarded in the stat sheet necessarily. He had 9 and 9. It didn't have any blocks, no steals. But that dude he left it all on the floor, just like everybody else. I think, as you said, Jared, I think you could give it to like 4 guys and feel fine about it. Johnson is a fair pick, and if that's the way this goes, that's fine. But I want to give credit to Race.
How very on brand of us with our selections, Coach.
Well, I got this one dude in the chat mob that I really kind of ticked off with the last time I went with the wrong guy on the Hustle Award. And
is it Carrots?
No, this is a guy I like. I mean, this is a guy who stopped by the tailgate, just a really cool guy. And so now I'm debating whether it's Xavier or it's Trey Galloway. I'm going to go with my guy, Eddie, and I'm going to say Trey Galloway, so we leave it up to the chat mob to break a 3-way tie, because everyone hustled so well tonight. It deserves a chat mob tie.
I hope the chat mob picks Durr.
There you go, Eddie Small. I got you, man.
There he is.
I stole you a drink, Eddie.
He said, just pick Galloway.
I told you. He was watching me closely.
Yep.
Hey, you know what? You know what, guys? We decided this. If it was tied, we could just give it to everybody that got a vote.
We did. We did that in the Notre Dame.
We didn't do half. We just gave them all one. There's extra awards. We're making this up. There's no actual award we have to split in half.
It's true. Okay, fine. Let's give it to all of them, because they do all deserve one.
They deserve it.
So we're doing a 4-way tie. We're adding Durr in there. 4-way tie.
Yeah, sure. The chat mob seems to be saying Durr as well. So let's give them all 4.
It's a football, but maybe we can send this out to the Hustle
Melt it
Award.
down into several small basketballs.
Basketballs. Yep.
Oh my gosh, man, that was fun. That was just, the second half, I don't know if I would call it fun. I was nervous.
No, it was a struggle.
Pacing,
it was a struggle.
But it was, just.
That last 15 minutes of the first half was pretty amazing. The last
great.
About 10 to 15 minutes of that first half was just like, this is how. And here's the thing, guys. Pending what happens against Michigan, this is a top 25 team. Indiana's a top 25.
Yeah, they beat Michigan. They'll be in the top 25
easily. I mean, they might be 20. With two big wins like that.
How much does this win? How much does this win move the noodle from a bracketology perspective?
It's a second quad one win, and it's just quality. When you beat Purdue and Ohio State, those aren't going away, and a lot of teams don't have them. Indiana's metrics are really good, and they should go up. I mean, they were a 33 net going into today. I would imagine they're going to be in the 20s in the net ranking. So they don't have – there are teams that have 5 or 6 quad one wins when you look at it. I think the highest they can get to right now until they pile up a lot of these wins is probably a 7 or an 8 seed. But that's better than a 10 or 11 where a lot of people had them. I think this win's good enough to move up at least one seed line from where people have them, depending on what bracketologist you look at. So that puts them in the 8-9 range for sure, which is more safe than most teams are right now. And that's a good spot. A lot of opportunities. So, Michigan's a quad 2, Penn State's a quad 2. You get those. Now you're looking but the ceiling's there to move even higher if you get a good run here. But right now, I'd say, it depends on what happens with other teams too and their rankings. That it's just not an automatic move up because you beat Purdue. It's the hardest thing to teach about bracketology. It's a comparison. But I'm looking for an 8 seed. But my committee of Purdue people here might, really be angry now. So. It might be a one-man committee. I'm going to pull executive privilege.
You can walk into that next Delphi bracketology meeting with your home field apparel on
and my candy stripes.
That's right. That is right, man. I cannot wait. I've got a WhatsApp chat with all my friends from West Lafayette from high school that I have just had to hear it constantly for the last.
That's
few
your
years.
fault for being friends with people who went to Purdue.
I look forward to stepping back into that chat with my head held high. Lingering question coming out of this game to me is, how is Trace? Because, we haven't had to focus a lot on the fact that he's probably still injured and we don't really know how much, but he didn't practice.
Well, he got
I think the reason, he got rested tonight, but I mean, and that certainly will help. He also took another fall, which, was similar to the other one that he took. So we haven't really gotten details. Like, is it a hip thing? We don't really know about the injury.
I thought tailbone.
Yeah. Okay. And I thought, look, a couple of those fouls were ticky-tack, and I thought were, kind of
one
lame.
of them was on Race Thompson, and they called it on Trace. I don't know. Yeah.
But I also thought there were a couple that were uncharacteristic of him, especially early, because he just didn't have the same movement that he normally does. And it was almost like he wasn't quite ready to not be as quick or athletic as he usually is. And so, look, it's awesome. You have this massive program win with the crowd going crazy and role players stepping up and all of that stuff. That's not going to happen every game. And with Hunter Dickinson coming in and Kofi Coburn coming in and a lot of, Indiana getting ready to face some other teams with good big men, we're going to need Trace in these games. It was awesome that the guys were able to do what they did tonight, but Trace is still, this team's best player. And so that to me is the big lingering question is, how long is he going to be hurt? If this thing lingers, is he able to adjust his game a little bit to still be productive with it? And I think also, did this team maybe learn a little something tonight about how to play without him, that if they have to play, if he plays a few less minutes per game, or if he's out, that now there's going to be a little bit more confidence that, hey, we have some things we can do now with Trace not out there. We'd be Purdue without Trace. So what other challenge is going to be harder than that? That could have a lasting impact, actually, I think, for this team. Coach, you're nodding.
Absolutely. A couple things. One, maybe the foul trouble was a blessing that he only played 11. If he's hurt, maybe you don't play 30 minutes, beating up against those big guys. And we got the win. And
to his credit, he made a couple plays down the stretch once he got in there,
Yeah, the other thing is exactly what you said, that life without TJD is okay this year, and maybe play 8 to 10 minutes and rest him. We've talked a lot about how tired he looks at the end of games and the accumulation of minutes. Ryan's been really on that, we still have a lot of games left, and then a Big Ten tournament, and then a March Madness to go, and you've got to save legs at times. You can cut back practice and hold them out of practice, which might happen some too, but this now shows that maybe they can do that a little bit more. and still then have a more productive TJD for the 30 minutes or 32 minutes. I think that's the biggest thing to come out of this. The lingering question for me is lineup. I think there needs to be some lineup, and that's not a negative thing. I think you saw a lot of players do things positively, and the mix of players that we've been calling for that anti-5-man bench thing, but the mix of our talent can be pretty good. If we win without TJD out there, and we had Durr out there, and we saw a little more movement, the 3-man weave at the top, some people like, some people don't, but at least it was some movement and caused the defense to not be in easy positions to help. So, I'm not calling for a change in the starting lineup or anything like that because I don't like any of the players, but I do think there are some strengths and weaknesses with individual players. That's the lingering question for me is, are we starting with our best lineup, and can everyone be put in better and even more productive spots within the lineups and the rotations? So that's something that I'll be willing to look at.
Ryan, your thoughts on, what this team may have learned playing without Trace, and, what his importance is going to be moving forward.
They learned that life doesn't end when Trace hits the bench. And I think Mike Woodson may have learned a lot too. And I think that may be the more important thing, is that Michael Durr can play some minutes and give your star some rest so that maybe he's fresh for that last 5 minutes. You did see that lineup that was there together. I mean, we're going to go back and watch this. They were clearly gassed in that lake. They weren't moving on the court. And that's natural to happen to college players. It just is. You play that much, you're going to get worn down. These guys are not professionals who can go 48 minutes. Their whole life revolves around being in good enough shape to play 48 minutes. That's not how it works. And so I think that he needs to understand that the bench is there for a reason, and have faith in it. A guy we haven't even talked about, Tamar Bates came in. He only played 7 minutes, all in the first half. Mm-hmm. Tamar Bates took 2 shots. They were both good shots. I thought the 3 was a little quick, but I thought, it.
In the moment, it was great because the place would have exploded.
Agreed, and it rimmed out.
And he's made it before, yeah.
And then he did that thing that he loves to do. He drove with his right hand and threw it up with his left, and it rimmed out, but I thought that was a good shot too. He had a nice pass on that breakaway because he's so fast. He got ahead of everybody, had a nice little pass. Yeah. It was a little off, but it was the right idea. And then defensively, he was moving and as amped as anybody on the court. He hadn't looked like that in a couple weeks. Out of his last game, he looked like he was getting into the game against Nebraska. But since he had to step away for a game, he hasn't looked like the same player. Tonight, he looked like that player. And here's the thing. I don't care if he scores. I care that he brings that energy and that he's focused and plugging the game. The scoring is going to come. He's too talented not to score. And here's the thing about him. He was never going to be a one-and-done guy. His scoring is going to be more important next year. But that energy and that focus that he has and being locked into the game, he doesn't need a 3 to be locked into the game. He was locked in from the start. And so you look at those bench pieces, and they all performed today. They can take pressure off Rob, who is a bench guy, but it's finishing games right now. Take some pressure off Parker Stewart defensively. Take some pressure off Miller Kopp. Maybe make it so when Miller Kopp and Parker Stewart are in the game, you can run them off screens and have them not be tired late in the second half and worn down. This needs to be an adjustment for Indiana. Michael Durr, I'm sorry, if he plays only 5 minutes without foul trouble, if he plays only 5 minutes the rest of the season, we need to be upset about it. He can play between, 8, 10, 12 minutes a game minimum and give both Race Thompson and Trace Jackson-Davis rest so that they are fresh at the end of the game. That's what you want. That's what that bench is there for. I know Trace wants to play the whole game, but we've seen him lose steam down the stretch. You've got to take advantage of the players you have. Jordan Geronimo needs to play more. He has provided so much energy and such a lift the last couple games. He needs to make his damn free throws because his form is perfect. He's just overshooting it. But the effort is there, and he's a guy who annoys the crap out of other people because he jumps.
His block shot was huge today. That block shot he had.
And Race took it down on a break. I mean, it was great. And he annoys people because it doesn't look like he could block that shot. But he's 6'6". He's only 6'6", but he has insane athletic ability and can get up and get that and push the ball down the court and do all of those things. He needs to invest in that bench because late in the season, you're going to need them. There are going to be games like this where you need them. And that's the lesson here. I don't think it's about what the team learned. The team learned a lot, obviously, but it's about what Mike Woodson learned about his team. And that needs to be the focus going forward.
He learned that they've got a whole lot of fight and a whole lot of self-belief.
A lot of heart.
That's for damn sure. And that is the most important lesson that can be learn from tonight. What a win for Indiana. Just such a special performance, a special night. I know I didn't spend a whole lot of time lingering watching the celebration afterwards. I saw obviously that the fans stormed the court, and I think that was natural when you kind of have a game that goes down to the wire like that. I know there was a lot of talk. Should we do it? Should we not? Is that giving Purdue the satisfaction? And I was kind of wondering myself, and then you see it in the moment and you're like, no, that was the emotion of the moment. And there's actually nothing wrong, I think, with tipping your cap to Purdue and saying that you owned us for a half a decade, and you have a great team this year, and this was a really important win for us. If that gives you a little bit of satisfaction, I don't care, because we're still Indiana and you're still Purdue. So take your satisfaction and, do what you want with it. But I think that was a really great moment for a lot of students and a lot of people that haven't experienced something like that before. So, they say what you will, the impact of hindsight and prisoner of the moment or whatever. But I thought in the moment it felt right. And it, like we talked about, it's just a catharsis for a fan base that needed something like this. Just a massive, massive, massive win for Indiana, and a fun night for Indiana fans everywhere. Real quick, Sunday, Michigan, really quick turnaround. It's a 3:30 game. I think if you want some really good insight on this game, I highly recommend that you go listen to the latest episode of Podcast on the Brink, Alex Bozich and Dylan Burkhart. I don't think that there is another fan base in the country that is fortunate enough to have someone covering their team as well as Dylan Burkhart covers Michigan. I listen to his podcast. I'm not even a Michigan fan, just because I think he covers their team so well. And so if you want some great insight, he actually gave some really good insight on the Purdue game, but some great insight on that IU-Michigan matchup. Listen to them. Coach, what I would say from this, just real quick, is, Michigan's a team that's really been struggling. Seemed like they kind of got something going against Maryland, but they haven't played well on the road, almost even worse than Indiana, where they just haven't been able to put 40 minutes together on the road. So to me, it's going to be a fascinating game because Indiana's got this quick turnaround. It is inevitable that there's going to be an emotional letdown. We don't know how healthy Trace is going to be. So I honestly have no idea what to expect from Indiana, and I'm willing to give them a grace period because they won this game today, so we'll see. But I think Michigan comes in, they've got some talented guys, but even if Indiana has a letdown, it feels like a game Michigan probably isn't going to be able to run away with it because these aren't, the Michigan teams of the last few years. And also, by the way, Archie Miller never beat Michigan. So we have a streak there to bust, and maybe we could do that again. So I don't really know what to expect. I think it'll probably end up being a close, hard-fought game. But Michigan is playing a little bit better. And so it's a little bit worrisome that they've been off since Tuesday. We have this quick turnaround, just is that going to give them an edge just from an emotional, mental standpoint? We'll see. We'll learn a lot about the quote unquote professionalism of this IU team, or their ability to stay focused, put a big win behind them. I think we're going to learn a lot on Sunday.
IU is yet to have a game where they were out of. Their 4 losses, they played really well, and then they, almost just outstanding, and then the opposite happened in the second half. Maybe they've had really bad halves, but the games have come down to the wire on every game. So I expect that to be true. So if there's a letdown or they don't play their very best, I think it's going to be a competitive game. Why? Because defense travels. You're gonna see a defensive effort. If tonight was an A+, maybe you get an A- or a B+. It's still going to be pretty good. Coach Woodson has just nailed the defensive identity with this team, and I think that's what you rest on. Winning is hard, and winning over and over and over again is hard. But it's the next step that this program needs: consistent winning on the road. And it would be a disappointment if they back this win up with a loss to Michigan. And Michigan winning at Maryland doesn't mean they're back. I mean, Maryland's really, really a struggle right now. So, and Dickerson has been out and just played minimal minutes the last game that he was in. So I think Indiana should be favored. I think we should expect Indiana to win. But you got to respect everyone in this league, because at any moment the Minnesotas, the Northwesterns, and the Nebraskas can sneak up, and get you. It was a Northwestern almost had a win against Wisconsin the other day. Was real hard-fought game. So there's no freebies in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and actually I want to modify my statement a little bit. I'm not going to give us a free pass on this, because one of the things that Mike Woodson has reinstilled is we don't lose at home, and this is a home game. And so, again, I think it's inevitable that you're going to have a little bit of a letdown, like there just won't be the same buzz in the arena and all those things. but you still got to find a way to win anyway. And it'll be a telling sign if things are really different with this program. Tonight was a huge sign that things are different. Now you can show it again coming up on Sunday and really show that, hey, we're taking this home stuff seriously.
We always say, Jared, after a big win, how do you deal with success?
I have a beer usually, Ryan, but now I'm in my classroom, so I couldn't. Thanks for asking. But as soon as I drive home,
that's why you've been diving off camera.
Yeah, as soon as I go home, though, I will have one. But thank you for asking how I handle a big win.
But how do they do it? This is the biggest win Indiana's had, as we said, in 11 years, 10 seasons, or no, 11 seasons, 10 years.
Yeah.
How do you deal with success? Do you handle it well? They won 2 games at home, including Ohio State, went on the road and laid an egg against Iowa. They wound up bouncing back, beating Nebraska. Now, biggest win, how do you move forward from that? That's key. And that's the formula that Mike Woodson has to unlock that this program has not had in a long time. Have success and follow it up.
Absolutely.
And then when you have a defeat, bounce back. Those are the 2 things that this program needs. You need to be able to follow success with success. No 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
Yeah, 100%. You are listening to the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. Remember to check out our friends at Home Field Apparel. Use the promo code HOME at checkout to get 15% off your first order. All right, guys, it is time for last call. And I will to lead us into this, just say, Ryan, as you mentioned, like the most exciting show that we've ever done happened like 9 shows into the show starting.
And it was just you.
2011. It was just me. So, like, if you thought I was hyperventilating at the beginning of this show, now imagine that for like 30 minutes where it's just me. I think at one point I held my
25 of those 30 minutes was just you being like, woo!
Yeah, it really was. So we've come a long way since then. But, we've wanted this show to be the place where IU fans come to celebrate together after big wins and commiserate together. And man, we've done a whole lot of commiserating together, a whole lot of losses and trying to find the silver linings and picking stuff apart and just being like, what the hell is wrong with our program? All this stuff. And it is just so much fun to have this again and remember what this feels like. And look, as you guys said, we got to back it up. This needs to be a springboard towards something, not a destination. But it is so good to have one of these moments again, not just with you guys, but with the over 1,000 people that were here live, all of you that are listening on the podcast that have been with us, through so many of these seasons, everybody in the private community, that's what makes this special, is doing it with all of you and sharing it with all of you. That's what this is all about. So with that said, Coach, last call, your thoughts on this Indiana victory.
It's just fun. It's fun to win. It's fun to come on here and talk, about mostly positive things and the things we struggle with as commentators or fans. It goes down a lot easier when you win. And you're happy. For me, you're really happy for the coaching staff and the players because they just put so much into it and so much is expected of them, especially at a place like Indiana. That to see, I got a picture of Rob being lifted up and to see his face. We're happy as fans because we invest a lot. But the players have to go through weight training and they go through practice and they got to fly here and fly there. And the coaching staff, man, it's everyday film and it's a grind. It is a grind. And games like this, are needed. And Indiana hasn't had them for a while. So for the whole program, all of Hoosier Nation, great job tonight. Collectively, we brought the win and the win against Purdue and looking forward to another win on Sunday.
Absolutely. Ryan, last call.
Biggest one we've had in a long, long time. And as I said, perfect night because Indiana won and Purdue lost. God, that feels good. Congratulations to Mike Woodson. Came back to Indiana for moments like this and accomplished it. Congratulations to Rob Finnessy, who stayed at Indiana and came to Indiana for moments like this. And they both deserve all the credit they get for this. Xavier Johnson as well deserves all the credit he can get. This showed a lot about Indiana. We've said it when Indiana plays well this year, when they're locked in, and we've seen it in stretches of games, but not for a full game. This is a top 15 team when they play well. When they're playing decent for a stretch of games, they're a top 25 team. They showed that tonight. Even through the struggles. Look, when Purdue took the lead back, I think 90% of the fan base, based on the past, said, no, the game's over. They just don't have it. They got punched. Purdue came back. You know, the more talented team, the better team is going to win this game. And then Rob Finney hit a three and changed all of that. It changed all the perspectives on what this game was. And that slow decline sort of at the end of the game changed everything with one shot. That was a shot we didn't get for 4 years and probably a little bit before that. The program's changing. It's not where we want it to be yet, but it's changing and it's getting better. The credit goes to the people at the top for that. The credit goes for tonight's win goes to the players. The effort they put was worthy of the jersey, and we have not been able to say that enough over the years. That effort was worthy of the name on the front of the jersey. And those players deserve to celebrate tonight. Hopefully not too hard because they got to come back for a game on Sunday. But
let them have it.
They deserve to celebrate this. And as we said in the last second too, this is a program that needs to build on wins like this and needs to start taking steps up the stairs as opposed to a step up the stairs and then we're stepping back and then up in the back and wind up in the same spot we've been for a long time, which is right in the middle of the Big Ten at best. Build on this. Build on this with recruiting. Build on this with, fan engagement. I mean, so this isn't the only game where people are waiting outside and packed in there. Build on this in this season because you can. And imagine Indiana didn't play its best game and still was able to win because of effort. Imagine when you put other things together, when you get Miller Kopp and Parker Stewart more open shots, when you get Trace Jackson Davis healthy for a full game, when you get the things you need, when you make your free throws, you can build on this and you can be a really damn good basketball team this year. I'm not talking next year. I'm not talking in 3 years. I'm talking right now. This can be a really damn good basketball team. They just got to build on this and move forward.
Yeah, well said by both of you. I've said for a long time that, especially at a program like Indiana, the wins and losses matter. The championships matter. Obviously they do. We, talk about the banners all the time and we hold them over Purdue. You have to win and you have to win at a high level. It's a really important reason why we're all fans and why we all keep showing up. But I know for me and I know for you guys, and I know for a lot of the people who listen to us and are in our community, there's something so much deeper that keeps you coming back, even when the team's losing and even when the wins aren't coming, and that's what we ultimately want to get to. But to me, the best part about being a fan, I've said this many times, is you watch a guy come to Bloomington, to Indiana as a freshman, walk on the same campus you did, take some of the same classes you did. Now, they're having a different experience because they're basketball players, and we weren't basketball players. But you know what? They're going through some of the same emotional growth and physical growth and maturity that we are. And watching guys go through the ups and downs and come out of it on the other side as a senior and to see the development that they made, to see where Yogi Ferrell was as a freshman and to see where he got as a senior. And that is why a night like tonight is extra special. Beating Purdue always would have been special, no matter how it happened. But the fact that Rob Finney did what he did, as maligned as he's been, as much as he struggled, on a night when in a week when his coach said what he said about him and went to him not once, but twice, and he makes the shot at the end of the second half and was so important in the first half. It's poetic. It's a storybook. And these are the moments that we're fans for, because to see a guy like Rob Finney triumph over the struggles that he's had in a win that means so much to him. He did not want to spend the rest of his life going home to Lafayette, never having beaten Purdue. And now he won't. And he played like a guy that was absolutely committed to just not letting that happen. And it just makes a night like tonight and following this program through all the ups and downs and all the struggles we've had with Rob and the frustrations, it makes it all worth it. And it makes this a win that isn't just special, it's extra special. Rob Finney, hat tip to you for sticking with it. And, and this isn't a culmination. This will probably be the biggest moment that he'll have in his career and the one that we're looking back on, but maybe not. This team may have a lot more that it's capable of because this is the kind of win that can springboard you to more. I'm just so proud of the program and everybody involved with it on a night like tonight. Huge win. And we're just very excited to have been able to share it with all of you. Okay, well, that is going to do it for us on this edition of the Assembly Call. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/assemblycall. forget to go to join.assemblycall.com to join our free email newsletter. Special thank you to Bob Thompson for the music that you hear on the show, and special thanks to John Ringer of Rig Design for designing our logo. And thank you for listening. We'll be back on Sunday after the Michigan game to talk IU Michigan. Until then,
take it from me, AJ Moye. Keep your elbows in, eyes on the rim, and go Hoosiers.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
I like everything about that.
This is a great day for Mike Woodson and his family.
you're darn right it is.
I knew that one was coming. I was waiting for that one the whole time.
I don't like carrots.
So should we do you remember your old Purdue post-game show rant, Coach?
No.
Should we play that for old time's sake, or just leave that in the past?
Leave in the past. It's a new day.
New day. All right.
What did I say?
I know, that's why I kind of want to listen to it. I've got.
Did you guys see the Mike Woodson picture I just dropped in the chat?
Yeah, it's awesome.
No,
it's so good.
No, I
Click
haven't
on
seen.
it.
I haven't been looking at Twitter.
Oh, you haven't
gotta
seen the
see
Rob picture?
No. Oh my
They
god,
hoisted-
that picture's amazing.
They hoisted
That's
Rob.
awesome.
Go up a couple. The link I sent from Twitter. They hoisted Rob above the crowd.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. No, I'm gonna kick back and enjoy going through Twitter and looking at some of that stuff.
Yeah,
Who
I
cares?
saw
I don't want to
Woodson-
listen to an old Purdue post game rant. You're right.
I saw Woodson do that going off the court. It was amazing. Put his hand up.
Purdue ended his career in the NCAA tournament. He
They
came
did.
back and beat him his first time, man. I'm telling you, it's just something special building. We're gonna see what he does with the offense and all that stuff, man. But
yeah,
he is,
and that stuff's all fixable. Like that's the thing is that the energy and commitment of the players and all that's not fixable. That's you either have that or you don't as a coach. The technical stuff, like getting his wing guys to move, getting the shooters to come off screens more, which we need to do more of. I mean, clearly every time we run Parker Stewart off 2 screens, we get something. Whether the ball goes in the basket or not, we get an open look somewhere, whether it's Trace or Parker, or they kick it to the side because somebody else misses a slip or something. They always get something. So they got to run more of that. No question. And there wasn't enough of that tonight. And he and Kopp, look, they have to be hitting shots. You got them. You recruited them. You brought them in. They got to hit shots. They got to be there to do that. But that's fixable. That's something you can manage, a new strategy or whatever. In the offseason, you can rework your offense for your personnel, whatever. But the attitude, the momentum of the program, the direction things are heading, that you either got that or you don't. And he's got that right now. And wins like this, wins like Ohio State show that there's progress. Certainly. So we'll see, man. Let's see how they follow it up. I mean, this could be the kind of win that puts you on a run. And this is a tough part of the schedule. And you got to get Trace back, obviously, man. I mean, he was clearly, you read all the beat writers tonight. He was struggling in warmups. He was really struggling in warmups.
yeah.
So, but there's no way he wasn't going to play tonight,
Okay. So I'm being told that we should play the Don Fisher call, which of course we should. I'm going to play this. Tell me if you guys can hear it. I'm going to play it into the microphone
Yeah,
so
just
everybody
put it
can
right
hear it. Okay.
Yeah.
The inbound, Galloway finds Rob Finney, who fires the 3 and he hit it! His 20th point of the game. Indiana leads by 1. Number 2. Yes! 4 points for Jackson Davis. Here comes Jaden Ivey down the floor. Ivey drives it right, pulls up, forces a 3. No good! They bank off the rim. No good, and Indiana's won it.
Amazing.
Eric Sir, very quiet on that one.
That's where you
Rightfully
just
so.
let fish.
It's Don's call. Yeah. No,
Man,
by the way,
Jaden
Ivey almost,
really faded. He really faded on that last
and he
3-pointer.
almost
Watching
banked
it again.
He almost banked it in.
I thought it was going in. When it hit the glass, I'm like, no, not a bank 3 to send us into
And
overtime.
it rolled out.
Come on.
I mean, it rolled
I
out.
know.
It was oof.
Oh,
But that was,
man.
look, Ivey's going to be a top 10 pick probably. He's this year's IO. Honestly, I mean, the guy is just, you cannot keep
he
him
reminds
down.
me a lot of Io.
You cannot keep him down. I mean, they shut him down in the first half.
He lost his poise in the first half,
He did.
and he also did a little bit in the second. And Williams lost his poise, and that's because of the pressure defense that Indiana played. Really got
They started
Purdue
committing fouls
out of sync tonight, and Indiana won the mental game.
For sure.
for the
And that's
most
why I
part
kept
tonight.
saying, I was texting you guys like 4 minutes in the second half. I'm like, you got to get Galloway on Ivey because you could see he
Mhm.
annoyed the crap out of him in the first half. And, Trey's bigger than the other guys. He's got a little more length at 6'5", and he's a little stronger. He could body him. I just thought that was the move. I thought they waited a little too long to go to him, but they made the right call at the end. So it worked, man. I didn't think anybody else. I think when they play them again, I think Galloway's got to be on it for 20 plus minutes easily.
It's so hilarious. So Eddie Johnson, famous basketball player Eddie Johnson, who I think is coached with Mike Woodson at many places, and they're like best friends. He's just constantly going after Jeff Goodman on Twitter, because Goodman didn't like the Mike Woodson hire. So he tweeted at him again, "This is the time I want Goodman to declare that Indiana is a much better school and team with Mike Woodson coaching. I told you, and now don't hide." What's
his handle?
It's so much. It's so much better seeing Eddie Johnson, like a player and friend of him, doing it than us doing it. Yeah. But it cracks me up. Oh, great show, guys. That was awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to go sit on Twitter and watch videos and watch Rob be carried off. It's just awesome, man. I feel
I heard the press conference, someone commented Woodson's press conference is really cool too. So I'm looking forward to go back and listening to that.
Me too.
Yeah. I'm going to go find the full game highlights that somebody's going to post in the next hour or so. Yeah.
I'm going to work up some bracketology too, especially Indiana's line tonight before.
Indiana's 26th in Ken Palm.
Yep.
There's only one
defense is up to 11.
There's only one thing that keeps this night from being perfect. Bottom's not being here.
Yeah.
Andy should have been here for this show. But, he's doing that dad thing, Ryan.
Family.
Always
why did you guys have kids?
Moment.
No kidding.
Just ruins everything, guys.
Ryan's being stupid again.
There he is. Okay. Now Andy's here.
San Diego chicken.
Okay, now we're good.
This is the life you guys chose.
That's right.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Have a good
by
night.
the way,
try to sleep. I'm not going to be sleeping very much tonight.
By the way, hold on. I'm going to drop before we close out. I'm going to drop those pictures in the chat because people are wondering about them.
Jared, also, I might be able to stay for an hour and a half of the meetup.
At Switchyard?
It's Switchyard.
Hey, okay,
cool. That'd be awesome. I think
you guys going to stay overnight?
We're going to stay overnight Friday night, and I'm thinking I'm now going to use my press pass to go to the game, and then Amy will be my driver. Not because I can't drink, but because I got a game that night. But I think I can get up on time for the varsity game. And
cool. And if even if you just come by and say hi before we even start the show.
Just come by and say hello to people and everything. So I think that's my plan. We're getting hit with a lot of cancellations up here too. So I'm afraid we might reschedule a game on Friday night. I hope that doesn't happen, but we're getting hit with a lot of shutdowns and stuff. But I just want to let you know that I'm planning on being there from 3 to 4:30, and then hitting the road to go up. I will not be able to be on the show Sunday. I'm going to be with IU Artifacts at the game.
We got to figure that out.
So
Ryan's going to be out.
NFL, until the NFL's over, every Sunday's out.
We'll figure something out. By the way, we put out the the event page for the Switchyard event. 100 RSVP spots. They were gone within like 4 or 5 hours, which is pretty incredible.
Do we have a max capacity for that?
Well, it's a little tentative. Like, they can only let a certain amount of people in. If you didn't RSVP, let me know, because I think there's going to be some wiggle room. So there may still be a way for you to get in. Plus, not everybody who RSVPs comes. Although I saw a lot of the names, and they're people that I think are probably going to end up being there. But people come and go, and so
if you come by and you can't get in, we'll come out and say hi to you, take pictures, like what So we'll interact with you in some way to thank you for coming.
Do you need to have?
It's very proud of you, Ryan, to think that people want to take pictures with you.
No, we'll take pictures of them at the event, not us in them. Yeah, so they can say they went. No, what was I going to say? Yeah. Oh, and I move a week from today out of my place, so how I'm going to set up for shows, I'm still trying to figure out. But I am. It's a shotgun. Last couple weeks. A couple week prepared move, so we'll figure out when I'm going to be on the show again.
Okay, we'll figure
it all out.
We'll figure things out. Yeah, awesome. But yes, but we want to see as many of you as possible. If you're going to be at the game too, let us know, because we'll try and like meet up at halftime and get like a big group picture. But if you're going to be at the game but you can't be at Switchyard, let us know, because literally, like, my number one goal coming to Bloomington is to shake as many audience members' hands safely with masks and all of that stuff, but just to say hi in person as we can. It's the best part about going up there. So please let us know if you'll be there, and we'll do whatever we can to make that happen. All right, let's go watch videos, listen to Coach Woodson.
Hour and 45-minute show, guys.
Bask. We could have gone for 4.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want to linger. We've had so many shows that are
I don't want to
downers. I don't want this moment to end.
Go out in the cold.
All right.
Unlike
have a good night, everybody.
Bye,
Enjoy
guys.
it.
Peace.
See y'all.